GPD unveils win for gaming console that features AMD Ryzen 7 840U or 7640U Phoenix APUs. Assassin's Creed Unity gets up to 313% performance boost with Intel Arc GPUs. AMD to be Bethesda's exclusive PC partner for Starfield, and Episode 2 will be supporting at launch. And lastly, NVIDIA to introduce Ada Lovelace's successor, Ada Lovelace, next in 2025.
This is Tech Track.
So firstly, we have GPD Win 4 console here. This is another handheld console, and well, as you can see, it's very much identical to the previous ones. A bit identical to the Steam Deck, rather Steam Deck doesn't really have any keyboard, which this one does have. And well, the screen you're looking at is a 6-inch. I believe Steam Deck is much bigger than that, but this one is a bit smaller, 6 inches, but the resolution remains 1920 versus into 1080p, so that's probably good. If you look into some text specs here, the launch date for this console will be August of 2023, so not too far off. So yeah, we'll be getting that. You can also have this pre-installed Windows 11 home 64-bit operating system, but you can also have the option to either install the Steam OS or their own GPD OS. As you can see, the display, we have the 6 inches native landscape mode, and the aspect ratio remains 16:9, and the screen resolution is 1920 x 1080 or 720p, and the resolution remains at 60 Hz or 40 Hz depending on, but I would never go for 40 Hz in my opinion, because 60 Hz is good enough. As you can see, there are two models that will be coming with the AMD Ryzen 7 7840U and the AMD Ryzen 5 7640U. Both of them are Zen 4 Phoenix APUs, and well, the Ryzen 7 one is 8-core 16 threads and the 5 is 6-core 12 threads. For the Ryzen 7, we're looking at the base clock of 3.3 and the boost is 5.1. That's pretty neat. And for the Ryzen 5 model, we're getting a 3.5 base clock and the boost is 4.9. So if you look into the performance here, for the Ryzen 7 model, we're getting 1.12 teraflops of FP32 and 559.01 gigaflops of FP64. For Ryzen 5 model, we're looking at 867.3 gigaflops of FP32 and 439.64 gigaflops of FP64 of performance. So not quite bad. Both models are getting a total cache of 24.5 and 22.38 respectively, and the processor, we're looking at 4 nanometers, so that has to be very efficient because the rated TDP is rated as 15 to 30 for both APUs here, so yeah, it's quite efficient enough. As for GPU, it's using the same old AMD Radeon 780M for the Ryzen 7 model, of course, and for the Ryzen 5 model, they're using the AMD Radeon 760M, and we already know the specs of the Radeon 780M, 760M, so nothing to talk about here. Let's look into the storage here. For the Ryzen 7 model, we'll be looking at 64 gigs or 32 gigs of memory, depending on which one you choose, and for the Ryzen 5 model, you have only 16 gigs. All of them are DDR5. As for the hard disks, both of them are getting M.2 SSD, basically NVMe 2280 support, and well, their interface is also PCIe 4x4, so that should be good enough. As for the battery that we need to look into, the battery capacity is 45.62 watt-hour, basically giving you a 2 hours of heavy use, 3 to 6 hours of moderate use, and 10 hours of light use. I would say 2 hours of heavy gameplay that would probably people would go for. So yeah, 2 hours of battery lifetime for, you know, normal gameplay, or not just normal, heavy gameplay. And if you want to go for the, you know, 3 to 6 hours of moderate use, I wonder if a hardcore gamer would go for 3 to 6 hours of moderate use, rather 2 hours of extreme gaming would be much better, right? And as for the weight, we're looking at 598 grams for both models, and you have the color variants. For the Ryzen 7 model, we have black and white, but the Ryzen 5 model, we're looking at only black. So yeah, this console looks good, but we'll tell more about this when we get to see the performance, of course. But I would say that it will perform exactly like the other console that has been released, like the Asus ROG Ally or such. You know, it should perform this similar because the specs are exactly the same as for the CPU and GPU, of course. Next up, we have a new ARC driver update, and well, this is something interesting. If you look closely enough, this is a video cards article we're looking at, and well, they have found that Assassin's Creed Unity, as a DX11 title, of course, it's getting up to 271% uplift at 1080p with very high settings, and up to 313% uplift at 1440p with high settings. Well, obviously this is a very old title, so not surprising we're getting this kind of performance. But you know what, if you're still playing Assassin's Creed Unity, this must be something to look out for if you have an ARC GPU, of course, because that's some good performance uplifts right there. Well, probably because from the beginning, ARC really didn't really perform well in this game, I guess. So now they're just fix some things so that the performance is normal now. So I would call that normal rather than uplift, because I mean, if you compare the previous performance, yeah, it's a huge uplift, but I believe this is more of a normal scenario if the GPU really performed with the right drivers. We also got some very decent uplift in F1 2022, as you can see, and up to 36% uplift at 1080p with high settings and 20% uplift at 1440p with high settings. And also when the ray tracing is on at 1080p ultra settings, we're getting 10% uplift. So not bad, I would say. Same goes for Deathloop, but it's a mediocre uplift, 10% at 1080p with ultra and 8% uplift with 1440p very high settings. So yeah, mediocre uplift in these titles, but maybe F1 2022 did get a bit, only if you don't turn on ray tracing. Still 10% is not bad either. But Assassin's Creed, that's crazy, but that is not realistic, because in the first place it was struggling, so we can't really call that a big win, because they just fixed the issue rather than boosting it. Next up, we have a report from Tom Warren, and well, AMD is gonna be their Starfield's exclusive PC partner. That's right. AMD has worked with Bethesda to optimize Ryzen Radeon 7000 series CPUs plus GPUs for Starfield. Bethesda has AMD engineers in our code base working on FSR 2 upscaling support for both Xbox and PC. So this game, Starfield, will be getting the support for the FSR 2 from launch. Exactly. And also, as this is an AMD sponsored title, so kind of makes sense. But it also tells you one more thing: DLSS won't be supporting from launch, so that I believe won't be a huge problem, because AMD or NVIDIA doesn't really matter. FSR supports any kind of GPU, but maybe not FSR 3.0 that will be released later. That might not support the NVIDIA titles, but rather support only AMD titles or AMD GPUs. So we'll see about that. But for now, FSR 2 will be supported for this game, and I believe no GPU will struggle to use or utilize that. So that's good. And lastly, we have a report from Hardware Lux, and this is a leak from them. Basically, they're just leaked the NVIDIA's roadmap for the 2024 and beyond. So let's look into it. So as you can see, it's the multi-chips yearly leaps one architecture, they're saying. And if you look into the the uplifts here, we did get the super chip Grace Hopper that was teased on the Computex event. So there it is. It's going to be launching maybe this year, later this year, I believe. We'll see about that, or maybe earlier 2024. Anything can happen. As for GPU, if you look closely, Ada Lovelace and Ada Lovelace Next right there. So Ada Lovelace will launch on 2022, and now we're looking at Ada Lovelace Next on beyond 2025. So that means that we're not getting the next generation of NVIDIA GPUs, which is the Ada Lovelace Next, on 2024. Rather, it's going to be delayed to 2025. So there's going to be a bit delay, because usually NVIDIA goes for the 2-year gap, right? In 2018 we got Turing, and in 2020 we got Ampere, and now we're getting the 2022, which is the Ada Lovelace. So it should have been 2024 for the Ada Lovelace Next, but it seems like it's not gonna be 2024, rather it's gonna be 2025, probably early 2025, because they don't want to delay too much, right? But that also kind of suggests that, you know, even AMD might not launch something, because, you know, the competition should be there, you know. But, you know, whatever, we don't know. Battle Mage might be releasing on 2024 or earlier 2024. We'll see about that. But for now, we just know that in 2025 we will be getting the Ada Lovelace Next. Don't know the architecture yet, but we'll see about that. And for a little bit side note here, CPU for the Grace Next will also be releasing on 2025. So at the same time, interesting.